Hi everyone, and welcome to And So On. My name is Lisa, and today I'm starting a dress from the free trial of the Tailor Academy. Okay, I'm sure you guys remember that just recently I did a review of the Tailor Academy, just looking at their whole course, looking at the first 3 classes, and not sewing a thing, just observing and seeing what I think. So if you remember, this is a generations old business. It goes back to 1741, and Stefan, the tailor, wanted to be able to share his craft with lots of people because really they could only take on 1 or 2 apprentices a year, and that just wasn't the way he wanted to be able to share his craft. And also, it is a craft that is, kind of going away, and that's really, really sad. So let's use the internet to continue to grow our knowledge and learn things. And in this case, for tailoring, it's perfect. And you guys really love that video. I really enjoyed it. And I reached back out to them and I said, what if we did a second video where I do one of the courses, one of the classes, one of the modules, I think they're called, from beginning to end, and really see what I end up with as a finished product. And they thought that was a great idea. So I've picked number 3, and this is a dress. I'll put in a picture right here. This dress is the 3rd module. So the first 3 are within the money back guarantee. And so you could make this dress for free, follow the whole course, get the pattern in multiple sizes, and then see what you think before making a decision on whether or not to commit to the rest of the course. I love this dress because it's classic, but also a little sexy, a little sassy. It has a V-neck and quite a plunging back. I think there's a lot you can do with it. There's also a fitting portion of this module. I'm not going to be covering that in this video, but just know, I'll give you a little sneak peek of it. There is a whole separate class on fitting and doing a fitting with a model and how you go about doing that. I'm just going to be making it for myself, but you do have access to that course as part of that module. So yesterday I went into Barcelona with Audrey and we went and got some fabric because I did have fabric for this, and then it turns out that I was naughty and did not look at the width of my fabric, and it happened to be a very narrow fabric. It wasn't the normal 140, 150 width, it was 130, and that meant that I didn't have enough fabric. So I headed into Barcelona and I went to Ribas y Casals, and I got a couple things there that I'll show you next time or another time. But I did get this beautiful Ramie fabric. It's a green Ramie fabric. Ramie is a little bit like linen. It's another plant fiber. Really beautiful, really light for summer, breathes really well. And I thought it would be super pretty for this pattern. And I got to work. So you follow Stefan through step by step in all of these different modules, and the course itself goes for 2 years, and by the end of it you can actually get a certification. You now have a range of patterns with dozens of styles that you are able to make up for clients, for yourself, all different styles and sizes. So when I first open up this course, I have a list of the materials, of what fabrics I need. I have all of the patterns that I need. I can download them, print them off, put them together, cut them out. No figuring out which line is which. They're all printed out separately, which is amazing. And then I printed them out, I cut them. One of the things I picked up, let me show you. I got this little doohickey here. This is a pattern punch. It is very inexpensive. I got one on Amazon. And what this is great for is punching out the markings all over your pattern, which makes it a lot easier when you have your chalk to just kind of dig in there. And I've been starting to use chalk more since I did the first video and learned a little bit more about it. I think for me, just like any tool, chalk is a bit of a learning curve in that you've got to learn how to hold it for you, for your hand, the technique of not pushing too hard, not pulling your fabric and distorting it, just kind of, small little strokes across, really good for, again, marking in those little notches, etc. And then what I do like is when I take off my pattern, it's all there and I'm ready to cut. I also normally use a rotary cutter. Stefan's using scissors, so I thought, okay, let's give it a try. I do have some sewing shears. Actually, I have a couple, and I think that's another thing, that you need to find the pair of scissors that fit in your hand and feel best for you. So I have these enormous ones here, which I guess are quite classic. I found them really heavy in the past. And I think the reason why is another tip of Stefan's, which is do not lift the fabric up off the table. And I realized that my instinct was very much to lift it off the table, which means you're lifting the scissors off the table. And so the weight of the scissors is in your hand and not on the table. And so once I started resting the scissors and just sliding it along, I found the scissors more manageable. My hand wasn't getting tired. So I think, again, when you kind of learn small details that make your workflow better, all of these tools start to make more sense. So besides just not messing with your fabric as you're cutting it, the other two tips that I thought were really good were make sure you're cutting on or inside your chalk line, because of course the chalk is on the outside of the pattern piece. And so if you cut outside of the chalk line, then you're actually adding millimeters to the outside of every pattern piece, and that adds up, right? The other thing is that as you're cutting, cut just right to the end of the pattern piece and no further, because we've all been in the position where we have a perfect piece of fabric, except we've carelessly just cut this much too far into it, and then we've ended up not being able to use the fabric. So he said, be careful, because you'll regret it if you want to use that piece of cloth for something else. So now that I've got everything cut out, I finished all the edges he asked me to finish. I've also used the seam tape, and I bought this seam tape from Prim after the last video, because I thought, how much easier is that than trying to cut little strips of interfacing? And it is much easier, much faster, much cleaner. So now I'm ready to start sewing, and I just basically keep my iPad right next to me and watch it step by step, because I can watch it anywhere from 1.25, 1.5, 2.0 quickly if I just want to get through something, but I can also watch it really slowly. I can skip back or skip forward. I can go to the different chapters, and I just find it easier to watch exactly what he's doing to make sure that I'm doing it exactly correctly. And then off I went sewing. So here's a little clip of that. Okay, so now that we have the side panels attached to the front and back, it's time for the concealed zipper. I'll be honest, I have a checkered past when it comes to concealed zippers. It's been a bit hit or miss, but more often miss. And I don't know why, but this one turned out well. To me, there were a couple of things that made it a lot easier. There were two marks at the bottom of the back seam where you're putting in the zipper. One mark is where the bottom of the zipper tape goes, and the other one is where you start sewing from. And so having those two reference points was really helpful. As well, he told you how far away from the seam line, not only to put the tape, but also where the teeth should finish, how far from the seam the teeth should be, in this case, 1.5 centimeters. And for me, again, I found that really useful. Now, I was using an invisible zipper foot. He was not. As well, my zipper was a little bit longer than the required one, and so I had to do a little bit of fidgeting. But overall, as you can see, it turned out really, really pretty. It's probably the best one I've ever done. Now, the Ramie has a natural bit of texture, a little bit rumpled, and so maybe it's not as smooth as it might have been in like a gabardine, but overall it's an invisible zipper, top to bottom, beautiful. So after completing the zipper, we did the back vent, and that was really interesting because there was this technique where he has you press open the seam by putting your scissors in there and opening it over the scissors and pressing it over the scissors. And he says, make sure that you don't use steam because you will burn your fingers. But even as it was, I was like, oh, this is toasty. And but I did. I pressed it out. I turned it. But when you flip it around, mine are ever so slightly off by only maybe 2 or 3 millimeters. But I'm pretty sure that's because my zipper was maybe ever so slightly off. But it's just more forgiving when you haven't yet done the side seams. Okay, so now I've got the front of the dress complete, the back of the dress complete. I've pressed everything, and that is where I leave you today. The next video I show you will have the facings, the side seams, the hem, and all the finishing details, as well as a twirl so that you can see exactly what it looks like. If you would like to give this a try, head over to the Tailor Academy. I've linked it below. Again, it's a free money back guarantee. May as well give it a go. You get the first 3 patterns for free, included with all of the sizing and so many really interesting tips and tricks from the pros. Okay guys, that's all for me. I hope that wherever you are, the sun is shining and you are sewing, and I will talk to you soon.